Hello everyone and welcome back to Groove Gaming. It's so nice to be back. I'm finally back. I was doing finals. It was a stressful time. I just streamed the other day and that was an amazing stream. I really enjoyed that. But I'm finally sitting down and doing a video because I know I've been away for about a week, maybe a couple more days than a week. So I'm doing this for you guys and I'm finally back and it's a lot of fun. But today's video, I wanted to talk about the state of PvP Season 5 and how I've been receiving it and my thoughts and opinions on it. I'm pretty much going to cover two things in this video. One is the Guardian profession and two is Condi damage in general and how I'm feeling and I don't know, maybe just some side notes. But yeah, that's what we're going to be talking about today, so let's get started. Okay, to start off, let's lay some background information. Some of you might know that I main Guardian in PvP, PvE, and World vs. World, if I ever end up in World vs. World. But yes, I do main Guardian, and I play it quite often, so I think I have a decent understanding about how it plays. Now, I wouldn't consider myself a professional, but it is my main, so I've got a lot of experience and time on it. But let me just say this. I want Guardian to be in a good place in all game modes. And I think in PvP, they are overpowered in some senses. There are other builds that aren't necessarily overpowered, but the main build everyone runs, it's super bursty. It's a mixture of traps, Condi cleanse, sword, shield, sword, focus, and longbow. Has great control, has great sustain, and can burst you down in a matter of seconds. Now, if you're going up against a build who is primarily tanky, it might take a little longer, but if you're going up an elementalist or a thief, and they don't know what they're doing and they're not evading, it's an easy kill. And whenever I go into a game, not on my Guardian, and I see that the enemy team has like one or two Guardians, a Mesmer, a Necro, or an NG, I'm like, okay, it's gonna be tough. Now, personally, I want Guardian to be in a sustainable place, but as of right now, the amount of damage is way too high. And I've spoken with a couple other people, and they're also just like, you know what, whenever I go in a game, Guardian is the main threat. And whenever I'm playing on my Guardian and I see another Guardian, I know it's going to be a quick brawl, but it's going to be intense. Now, I will say it does take not a lot of skill. I was going to say it takes skill, but after I thought about it, I was like, you know, it really doesn't take a lot of skill. You press 2 if you're on sword focus. You press 2, you press 3, you press 5, you press F1, and you basically win. Now, if they happen to survive that, you probably will use your utility and your traps, and that's another thing. Traps in general, I think, are a little overpowered. The healing trap, I think, is fine. It has a low damage output, which I don't think it even needs the damage, if I say that so myself, but it's fine. It's only like 100 damage, so it's not game-changing. It's just nice. The healing is fine. But the two traps that I run are the not Test of Faith. I used to run Test of Faith, but I forgot the name of it. The name is escaping me right now, but it's a trap that summons the swords in a ring. The damage for that is, I think, a little too high. I think if they brought it down by 10 or 5%, just to nerf it a little bit. I'm not saying nerf it by 20%, though they might want to do that. It's really, really powerful and strong. Now the elite, I think is weird to touch base on because it is, of course, an elite skill. I don't want to necessarily say increase the cooldown, but if you are not going to change the actual functionality of the skill, increase the cooldown. It's, I think, coming off cooldown a little too quickly. That's just me. But if they are to keep the cooldown the same, I would say to reduce the amount of time you're trapped in that circle and maybe limit the amount of people that gets trapped in it. I don't know. Either limit the amount of people that's trapped in it or reduce the amount of time that you're actually caught in the circle. Because it's really powerful, even for that split second. If you get two people in there, you can just burst them down in a matter of 5 seconds flat. It's a little scary. And I think the other, at least in PvP, the other elite skills don't match up. I will say Renewed Focus is okay if you need more survivability, but especially my playstyle, I'm the type of playstyle that's in, kill people in 2 seconds flat, get a team kill. So I don't typically take renewed focus, but I do understand that some people will take it if they're having some troubles with surviving. Now, the actual weapons, I think longbow is in an okay place. I think longbow is fine, actually. True shot, the second skill, I actually think it could increase the cooldown. It's on a 4-second cooldown, and it does a huge amount of damage. I don't know, I think it's a little overpowered. I think just that skill alone in the longbow arsenal can use some tweaking, because you can take half of someone's health bar down. You can pretty much kill someone if you're up against an elementalist. If you use true shot once, takes them down to 50%, 3-second cooldown, take them down again. It's not really challenging. Every other skill, in my opinion, I think is fine. Fifth skill with the AoE trapping everyone, fine. Fourth skill, fine. The symbol, the blinding shot, I think it's fine. The auto attack is fine. But I think true shot is really the only skill that I would change. Now moving on to sword, shield, sword focus, depending on which one you choose. I think the sword in general is a little too overpowered. I think the second skill is fine. Symbols are always pretty nice and they don't really need too much changing. But I think the third skill, where you just send out all those like short-ranged slash attacks, does too much damage in my opinion, especially if you have a lot of might, and just that trait which increases damage for people in your symbol, you can just burst them down in a matter of seconds. With the offhands for focus, I think focus is fine. The fourth skill isn't really game changing. I think it is in a very nice place, doesn't need any changing. The fifth skill I think is also fine, but the actual ending burst damage I think is a little too high. I would rather see the focus being more of a defensive tool. And the fifth skill, it's defensive, but also does a really high amount of damage at the end. But there is also that double-edged sword you have to factor in, which is your fifth skill for your focus can break. But those are my opinions on the focus. Now the shield I think is absolutely fine. I don't really think it would need any changing. The fourth skill for the shield, which sends out that wave, which gives Aegis to everyone, is fine. It works very well with the trait, which I enjoy. Gives a bit more of a support aspect. Now the fifth skill I think is also fine. I think really my only problems are the longbow 2 and the actual sword 2 and 3. Everything else is pretty much fine. For at least the shield 5, the knockback and the heal is nice. Yeah, that's all I have to say about Guardian. So I think we shall move on to my second topic, which will be condition damage in general. Now, moving on to this segment about condition damage. Let me just say, condition damage is a very touchy subject that is quite hard to remedy, and people are arguing, and there's conflicts going on about people's opinions about condition damage versus other people's opinions about condition damage. Now, let me just say, I am kind of in the middle. However, my thoughts kind of lie with the people that disagree with the amount of condition damage going on right now. And I've spoken with a couple other people, and they are also quite upset that PvP this season, and what seemed to be quite a bit of last season, was that there's a lot of condition damage, and I mean a lot. Like, if you get 5 conditions on you and someone who put those conditions on you are condition build, you're pretty much screwed, especially with slows, chills, dazes, immobilizes, confusion, torment. All these are really powerful when they get stacked up on you. Now, as you see in the background, I'm playing a Mesmer, and by no means am I an expert Mesmer. I've played Mesmer in the past, so I do have a little bit of an understanding on how they play, but I do not main Mesmer. And I was able to quite effectively apply conditions and survive at the same time. Now, granted, this was a bit more of a heated match where I was really in the zone, And I guess you can say if anybody's in the zone, they can perform quite well. Now, when I say the condition damage is kind of getting out of control, I mean it's like really getting out of control. You have to, well, let me just say, as a Guardian player who mains Guardian, and I have all these utility skills and traits, and I'm going up against someone who has condition damage, I'm kind of forced to take Condi Cleanse utilities in a match. Now, of course, you don't have to, but sometimes it's a death sentence if you don't have that. And I think with condition damage, it's kind of unique because if you're going up against someone with a power build, there's no really utility skills that will mitigate physical damage unless you're like a warrior endure pain. Some of those rare utility skills, which are pretty much baseline because it's really effective. But you don't really need utility skills to mitigate damage because it's kind of something that just happens. But with condition damage, you're forced to take utility skills that can limit your possibilities of actually expanding your build. And you're forced to take Condi Cleanses because if you don't, you're going to get bulldozed over by just poison and bleeding and torment and confusion and burning, especially burning. I've seen a lot of burning, especially for even Guardian players. There are some burn Guardian builds, and they're really effective. Now, this is when I have a bit of an issue. I don't know how to remedy this situation, and I don't think anybody really has a surefire solution. Some people say, you know what, Condi's completely fine. It's the game, get over it. And I understand that. I'm not like whining saying, I'm not going to play PvP. I'm going to play PvP, but I'm just saying this is possibly, for me, an issue that I might want to see just addressed. I'm not saying nerf it to the ground, but possibly tweak some of the numbers with the Condi and some build capabilities. And that being said, every class has certain builds which allow condition damage to be viable. And I think that's amazing, but if you're going up against a full team who are running Condis, it's quite difficult to actually outplay them because you might cleanse some Condis, but then 20 more are instantly applied to you, and you can't really escape it because even if you get out of combat and you don't have any Condi cleanses, you're gonna die, and that is sometimes frustrating. And I'm not saying like if you're out of combat, like remove condition damage. That would be quite weird though. Like, could you imagine like if you're out of combat, Condis are just like ticking off? But I don't think that would be a remedy. And this is what I reach out to you guys. What do you guys think about Condi damage in general? And if you have an issue with it, how would you go about remedying it? At least for me, I would look at, in my opinion, the three main classes who are responsible for heavy Condi damage, which in my opinion would be Mesmer, NG, and possibly Necro. I've also seen Ranger. I think Necro and Ranger are kind of tied in the Condi department. Speaking of which, Ranger, I have played some Condi Ranger, really fun, might make a video on it. But I would look at those three classes or professions and really see what the traits and builds that mesh so well together that make it happen. And I know people are like, well, it's meshing well together, that's the point. But in my opinion, in a game, some things mesh too well, like a little too well, and they might need a little bit of a break just to give it more of an even ground for other players. And I say how would I go about doing this? Maybe tweak some of the Condi damage numbers on some of the abilities, because I know F2, at least for Mesmer, your F2 Shatter applies Confusion, and if you trait it right, it also applies Torment. And with the Chronomancer trait line, you also get those two trait lines that will respawn an Illusion and a Phantasm. So you can basically get, if you have a full slot of clones, you can get 6 clones, actually 8 considering you are considered a clone. You can get 8 shatters worth of Torment and Confusion, not even touching based on the other Condis that you can apply through your weapons. And some of the traits and skills, utility skills, increase your Condi damage and your duration, not even including your amulets, which will also increase Condi damage and duration. Now, I'm not saying change the actual amulets, because I think the amulets are fine. I'm just saying more towards the actual skills. And for Necromancer, I think because Necromancer did receive slight nerfs, they're not as good as they were, but of course they're still viable. And NG. I don't play NG, but I've played against many engineers, and their amount of boons that they can apply is a problem in itself, I think. And not even talking about the Condi damage, because they can apply every single boon in the game, and they can also apply almost, I think, every Condi in the game as well. So they're almost unkillable, and they kill you quickly. It's sometimes frustrating. And then, as I said before, if you're going up against Condi, you're forced to take utility skills that, you know, counter condition damage, which, you know, in a PvP setting might not be fun. Like, what if I want to take a spirit weapon as a guardian? I know spirit weapons are really bad, but like, what if I want to take a spirit weapon? They don't cleanse conditions. I mean, well, I think the longbow does. I think the longbow, yeah, the longbow does. Just kidding. No, it's the longbow does. But yeah, that's my thoughts on condition damage. I would love to hear what you guys think. This was a quick video. I don't know. If you like condition damage, I understand where you're coming from, because it's fun to play, but going up against it can be quite aggravating. But yeah, that was today's video. Hope you guys enjoyed. Like the video, liked it, comment down below what you think about condition damage in Guardian, and subscribe for more content, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye!